The music you hear is for transformative purposes.
You know, karma is one of those forces that's unavoidable. No matter how you feel about faith, there is some type of cycle of justice that likes to take its merry old time coming around. But it would appear that it's Sweet Baby Inc.'s time to get a mouthful of their own medicine. You remember Kim Belair, the co-founder of Sweet Baby Inc., the people behind quite a few wokeified games recently, and so proudly so of that she delivered this PowerPoint presentation explaining to game dev studios how to pressure their bosses into allowing Sweet Baby Inc. to be hired.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
Oh, geez, you know, it would be awful if something happened to this real nice gaming studio you people have been trying real hard to get going. Boy, it would be awful if somebody just said, this place is a horrible racist atmosphere. We can't get any diverse attitudes involved. Our bosses just want us to make games about white people. Boy, that would just really stymie your efforts, wouldn't it? I don't know. I do know this is you know, this is threatening people. This is Kim telling these game devs to go and threaten their marketing departments, their HR departments, whatever, whoever is in charge of this, that can then go to the administration and say, "Hey, man, we're gonna have a public relations nightmare unless we hire these freakazoids that want to tell us what to put in the game that we already know what we want to put in." Isn't that weird? Right? Remember, a lot of games don't get made without a story in mind. You know, even the little short little ones with the little meat boy, little meat boy there that was, you know, being damaged by everything. There's a story there. You know, the little pixel runner that's got a story. Even Line Writer had a little teeny tiny story to it. And it's important to remember that that's what Sweet Baby Inc. advertises themselves as, by the way. This is what they advertise as. They are intending to tell you their jobs are to come in and fill out the world for these games, fill out the dialogue, fill out the creative end of it. And I just have to ask, the studio already has that department. That's the creative department. What are we doing? If the creative department is inadequate, fire them. Hire people who are adequate. Don't add bad idea on top of bad idea. Call me crazy, right? It's better to have no flat tires as opposed to two. Anyway, moving on. Kim decided that she needed to air out her grievances with, I presume, the world? I'm just gonna guess gamers in general, as she's talking about here with the XOXO festival. Okay, this is a gaming pop culture sort of TED Talk space. It's leans much more left than TED Talk, if you can believe it. So anyway, XOXO is here talking about what's going on with, giving Kim, rather, the floor to talk about what's going on with Sweet Baby Inc. after Sweet Baby Inc. detected and then DEI detected was born out of their exposure. And so Kim is talking here about Carrie Fisher and how Carrie Fisher did not, well, at least she spoke publicly about the eye of fame being too, you know, glaring, too blinding. She didn't want to be a starlet. She was more enraptured with the craft of acting, the craft of storytelling, the craft of, you know, making a movie, putting on a production, that kind of thing. So again, I can't speak to that. I don't know about Carrie Fisher. Is just not a person that interested me. I don't have anything against her. Just as far as Hollywood people go, I don't tend to get involved in how they got there. They're just people on screen that are playing neat characters to me. I'm sorry. I come from a background of stage acting, so I guess it's just like, if you're a mechanic, I don't know, are you checking in on other mechanics and see how mechanic-y they're doing? Are you asking them for tips, maybe? I mean, that makes sense, but like, I don't know. Like, how'd you become a mechanic, man? I don't know. You know, Dad was turning a wrench too. It's just, I don't know. It's one of those things. Like, it just doesn't occur to me to get into the other actors' heads, I guess. I'm not on their level. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a Hollywood actor. I just won some awards locally. That's it. It's not anywhere near comparable. It's a completely different atmosphere, by the way. So, Carrie Fisher, whatever you did, great job. You did a lot of stuff, and that's awesome. I'm not trying to belittle it. I don't know. But Kim is very enraptured with Carrie Fisher. And she's comparing herself to this deceased actress in an attempt to humanize the experience that she's been through. And so, more importantly, she's talking about the creative magnate that Carrie was known to be outside of being an actress. So she was a sponsor of a lot of films, a lot of arts processes, a lot of other creative outlets that she was a part of and manifesting. So this is what Kim is talking about. This is behind the scenes stuff. And she says this particularly that, of course, the audience yucks up about. So here we go.
As a creative myself, that's all I've really ever wanted. I've never wanted to be known by audiences, really. I have never wanted to be known by gamers, certainly. And I've wanted to be...
Yeah, so that's what's fun about this, is that she paused waiting for people to laugh. You hear that? That's what happened. Let's just quick little drift back. Here we go.
Really, I have never wanted to be known by gamers, certainly. And I've wanted to be...
Certainly. I've wanted to be, so that was the hole for you to laugh, the audience, the flashing light that says laugh now, laugh you dummies, that kind of thing. So it is going to repeat in here, by the way, because she likes to stick memes into this, and as we go through the discussion, you're going to see them pop up. Did you know she's a Redditor? We're going to find that out in a little bit, by the way, so stay tuned. But for now, you may have picked up on what she was saying while she was going for that planned applause, that planned laughter. She said she didn't want to be known by gamers. Now, that's a strange thing to say when you're writing the creative end, when you're creating the creative end of the games. Now, we know that Kazuma Hashimoto, who used to work for Sweet Baby Inc., did full-on character creation for major characters in video games while this person was working for Sweet Baby Inc., this Kazuma Hashimoto, okay? So we know that happened. So Kim, how can you not want to be known by gamers when the corporation you started, the consultancy you started, explicitly functions to influence the totality of what's seen by the gamers? How do you say you don't want to be known by gamers when the whole reason a character's line of dialogue is what it is because of the company you created? What are you talking about? What kind of, I don't know the cognitive dissonance you get into that one. That's amazing. That's like being a car maker, I guess, and being like, no. We don't specialize in vehicles here. We just like the ambiance of, gas in the air. We like the smell of burning diesel. It's like, well, what? What are you doing? We just want to be known as the guys that turn the wrench around here. We don't want to be known as the people who put the whole thing together, even though the reason why it looks the way it does and sounds the way it does is because of us. It's a genius move, don't get me wrong, to stand up in front of a bunch of people and laugh around and humanize yourself and say, hey man, I'm just like you. I'm not a sociopath pretending to care about other people, even though I've made it explicitly clear that I want you to harass your coworkers on my behalf so I can get richer. I mean, short of pulling out a drawer and taking a dump in somebody's desk, that's somebody else's joke, by the way, but opening up the drawer and taking a dump in somebody's desk, I can't think of any more like sociopathic behavior than going out here and deliberately, knowingly attempting to create more controversy while playing down the current controversy. It's like, I don't know, it's what's going on with the White House, so I guess this is what Kim feels like is necessary for her. To go out there and rabble-rouse and cause trouble and headaches for everybody but her, and that way she gets her emotional outlet. But she goes on again to explain that there was trouble. There was trouble. As you know, Sweet Baby Inc. was exposed by several outlets for being part of the wokeification of games. Their names were tied to some of the most controversial titles that inspired Sweet Baby Inc. Detected, that Cabrutus made, that now has evolved into DEI Detected. And again, it has been like a very eye-opening thing for a lot of gamers in like, I guess, like me, I wasn't in the core of this. I didn't know that there were even consultancies being hired, And we'll get into that too, so don't worry. But here's what Kim had to say about how terrible things went for her.
The Google went bad. I shouldn't have done it because rather than any praise or people going, wow, how did you do it? Or just, hey, a narrative development company, what does that mean?
Yeah, what is a narrative development company? Okay? I said just a moment ago we're going to get into it, so here we are. What is a narrative development company? We're not done with this yet, don't worry. What is a narrative development company? A narrative development company is, as I said, it's another layer on top of the creative team that you already have installed in your studio, okay? The people that are in charge of writing the stuff should already be in the studio. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're not a studio then. You're a bunch of people that like coding, maybe a couple sculptors. That's not, sorry. You got to have that creative end of it whose, job is to come up with the story, the apparatus. Sure, the guys who come up with the coding can be the first in line and say, hey, we've got an idea, but we need some help. Kim is saying that you need to hire her on top of bringing in an initial creative team. All right. So initially hiring a group of people to help you create these stories. And so I'm a little lost in why you need to do that. Okay. There may be a long history in this. I'm not sure because I've never heard of it. Like I said, I'm not in the core of how these things function. So a narrative development company comes in and they do all this creative writing for you. And then they develop, like I said, with Kazuma Hashimoto, they develop major characters for you. They develop minor characters. They develop world building for you, that sort of thing. It seems helpful on the surface, but what is the purpose of the built-in creative team, right? What is the purpose of this? Now, if you're a dev studio, as I said, that it's a group of coders and sculptors that don't have a writer, you don't need a consultancy group. I promise you, there is some sci-fi writer, some fantasy writer, some slice of life writer, some other genre I can't think of at the moment writer just hanging out on Twitter that has a measurable following on Amazon that you can collaborate with, and thus you end up picking up a little bit of star power with your video game. Like, consider that you're doing a very, very cool fantasy story that Brandon Sanderson would be perfect for. And you approach him and he says, dude, this is so cool. I finished writing 16 novels this morning. I've got plenty of time to write 14 different games for you guys. I'll have that to you by lunch. You know how he works. And so, then you've got to say, like, from the genius mind of Brandon Sanderson comes Fantasy Unlimited Max Turbo Ultra the Third. Whatever you want to do, right? Some crazy thing. But now Kim says she doesn't want to be known by gamers. We heard this before, right? So Kim says she doesn't want to be known by gamers, but yet she wants to have this kind of presence in here. She wants to have people recognize what her job is. She wants people to be curious about it, and she wants people to understand it, even though it's utterly pointless, as I said, because you can't talk about her anymore. You can't say, from the visionary minds at Sweet Baby Inc. comes King of Fighters 8, I'm sure it's not 8 anymore. It's way over 8, I'm sure. But I think I got Mario Kart mixed in there. But anyway, that would be good, though. Think about that one. If you're listening, game devs, a fighting game that has like a racing mechanic in it, huh? How about that, right? That'd be kind of fun, huh? But anyway, back to this monstrosity. She goes on to talk about all the bad people that came out to say bad things about her badly.
I'm really interested. We were instead found by kind of, 4chan and the worst people on Twitter. And
the absolute worst people on Twitter. The absolute worst people. You'll notice Kiwi Farms is there, and then there's the 4chan logo, and then apparently Reddit is evil too. I missed that part. She even goes on to say that Reddit's real cool. We'll get to that one. But as you can see, Sweet BB Inc. are basically a branch of BlackRock that consults on ESG and gaming. Basically, if you want ESG funding, you need to pass the ESG scores by this company, 9gag. And of course, that's not true. We know that they're not a tally counter. We know that they have these DEI scores that allow them to qualify for loans. And that's the point of why they keep upping the ante here, is because they have to keep the score up in order to keep qualifying for these loans. If you don't know, most of the studios that exist right now are many $billion in debt, if not a few million in debt. And so most of the movies anyway, a long history of this, of movies being made with loans, not straight up money from the studio. It's just what happens. And you look at Warner Brothers, they're 20 billion? 20 billion now? They've been in debt since the 90s, right? And so this is not what Sweet Baby Inc. deals with. As I said, their narrative. They deal with the creative side of things, something that your, dev studio should already have. Even if it's just a fan fiction writer, I promise you, you don't need a whole consultancy group. You just need somebody that'll sit down, listen to what your ideas are, and add a few things to it. If you notice when you're playing a video game, you're not really totally concerned with the story of the characters you're playing. You kind of make up a little bit of it in between. Kim is insisting that all of that needs to be filled. There can be no air gaps in the story. There just has to be wall-to-wall explanation.
And looking back, there is a funny element to it where I go, like, people were kind of talking like, I've discovered a secret Canadian company. Like, these are the guys who did it. And the discovery that they had made was actually like our public-facing website.
Now, what's important about that is they went on to have this sort of hiccup with Square Enix removing themselves from the public-facing, totally not secret, not at all kept a secret, Sweet Baby Inc. studio, ran by somebody who didn't want to be known by gamers, BT dubs. So anyway, back to this right here. Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts dev studio, Square Enix, appears to have ended working relationship with Sweet Baby Inc. What's interesting about this, most particularly what's interesting about this, is that Kim neglects to mention that the corporations that were so proud to be in contact with them and working with them started pulling that from their public display. And so the whole website has now been redesigned. She neglected to mention that they've changed quite a few things over here. You go, oh yeah, look at these games. Now they'll tell you the games that they've worked on. Absolutely. Yep, right here. There's no secret there whatsoever. However, what do you not notice here anymore? Oh yeah, a list of the studios and corporations that they work with. How about that? Doesn't exist on the website anymore. It's just that easy to erase anybody who doesn't want to be a part of it. So that way, you don't get to see all these corporations that are pulling the plug on their collaborations with Sweet Baby Inc. or, fully and entirely not wanting any association publicly anymore. And so instead of having all of these scalps they were displaying, yes, these conquests that they were displaying, being ticked off one by one by one by one as these corporations decide they don't want to be publicly associated with these people anymore, well, they've gone ahead and deleted that because, they're not lying to you if they don't tell you the truth, right? Because if you don't know to ask the question, how can they lie to you about the answer to the question you didn't ask, right? It's genius, totally big brain stuff. And of course, as she goes on, she wanted to explain like, oh, it's so awful and painful and terrible what we went through. And so she has this to say.
I will say, though, is also a very disorienting experience because what happens when you get harassed is that you realize that most of it is just noise and that nothing functionally or fundamentally changes.
What she's describing is cancel culture. She will not call it that because that is a sacred practice. That is the holiest of holy orders, the great cancel crusaders within the DEI, SJW, leftist, hive mind, whatever you want to call it. The communist broadcasting signal, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, work out those initials. But so you have Kim here complaining about being canceled. And how many times have we heard from people who are right of center over the years, particularly since all this cancel mob stuff got started? How many times have we heard the same thing from them? That when you're in the middle of all this, if you just don't pay attention to the internet, guess what? If you're not turning on the television, guess what? If you're not watching the news, guess what? You don't know. You don't know what people are saying about you, and it can't get up your, It can't get in your brain the wrong way. I almost said a naughty word on YouTube. Can't say that. So, you know, in the long run, it just kind of copy and paste what a lot of right of center people have described going through and dealing with as they were canceled for their beliefs. Now, Kim is upset that this has come back on her. She's angry that she's stuck having to deal with all of these naughty, awful, bad, right of center people, these alt-righters, these 4chaners, these terrible people on Twitter. Yeah, she's very, very upset with this, even though this is exactly what happens to anybody who runs afoul of the message, as you know. And so we'll listen to more of what she says here.
People say, I'm so sorry for what you're dealing with, but could I get that script on Monday? And you say, yeah, it sucks. Anyway, I will get that to you Monday, though, because there is no time off.
Okay, so again, she goes on to say this nice little pivotal thing.
There is no stop in video game production. You can monetize a hate video, but there is no hazard pay for harassment.
No, I wonder who she's talking about. I wonder who she's talking about. You can monetize a hate video, but you don't get hazard pay for harassment. Again, like, she's detailed in here that they received death threats and bomb threats, and people went after their family, and all sorts of personal things. And as I do in these videos all the time, please, I encourage you, anybody that has their dander up over this situation, anybody that's feeling tilted, if you will, over this situation, we're just here to laugh at her. We're just here to laugh at her. Please do not leave this video with the intention of going and exacting revenge on Kim Bel-Air or Sweet Baby Inc. employees, anything like that. There's no reason to contact them and give them ammunition for this right here. The only reason why she's up here is because she's received enough backlash that she can form a dialogue around it now and explain that she's the victim, even though she expressly went out and said, take game dev studios hostage so we can get hired there. Why would people feel threatened by that? Why would people feel threatened when you have people coming out and speaking in defense of Sweet Baby Inc. and saying, these details make it seem like they're inciting an incident on equal footing with what happened when Sweet Baby Inc. employees were calling for Cabrutus to get canceled, for his world to end, for his access to the internet to be cut off. You remember that. And then they go out and then she says things like this, part of the greater movement towards a lot of very far-right thinking, and she says the critics, this is what she had to say about the critics. This is Kim talking about this. So now she's like, oh, no, I didn't provoke this at all. I was just doing my creative work. I was just out there making sure that games aren't monolithically white and straight, because she's very concerned about that, as you know. But what ended up happening is that she ended up going out here and inciting a lot of people's tempers, because guess what happens? When you go labeling people awful things, they label you back, darling. That's what happens, Cupcake. When you go kick in a hornet's nest, the hornets come out. How about that? It's almost like you touch a hot stove and you get burned. I don't know where you got the idea that it was a good idea to come in and tell people that the original concept for this game is either sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, otherphobic, kinphobic, two-soul-phobic, whatever you want to do, okay? This is not a good way to introduce yourself to the gaming world. This is not a 007 movie where you're going to get, like, away with it, okay? This is real life. There's no riding off into the sunset and all the things you did just go away as the credits roll. That's not how real life works. When you step in doo-doo, it sticks to your shoe unless you scrape it off. And in this case, scraping it off is apologizing. It's that simple. Apologizing beginning with the premise that gamers are racist, that games on their face need to be brought up to DEI standards, that need to be brought up to a level of inclusion that makes you feel comfortable. Okay? That's where you're wrong. When your first step into that sphere is, this is wrong. And then you get mad when people push back on you and say, hey, everything's working fine over here. What you're introducing is causing chaos and trouble and discomfort and discord, okay? Not the place where you talk to your friends. Discord is in, like, bad vibes. And that she just doesn't understand this. It's a totally foreign concept to Kim Bel-Air on this entire front. So we'll go on and we'll hear what she has to say more about this as she comes to the end of her conversation.
Here because I remember one evening I was coming home and I was like, all right, I've dealt with too much today. I'm just going to relax by going to the Yakuza subreddit, which I have to say 99% of the time is a wonderful space. It's very funny and the people are pretty nice. But not even thinking, I scrolled past a joke about Sweet Baby Inc. And the thing is, in service of this great subreddit, it was actually well-intentioned. It was not a joke intended to make fun of us. It was intended to make fun of the campaign. But the strangeness of it still, of it being everywhere, of it feeling inescapable, but meaning nothing in my day-to-day was too utterly bizarre. And
all right, and again, like I said earlier, so this is what she's describing is she's like, oh, I've had to deal with all these people complaining about what I do because I kicked a hornet's nest. Oh no, poor pitiful me, blah, blah, blah. But what she goes on, what she's explaining here is that she went to Reddit, she's a Redditor. That should explain some things. But in the process of trying to relax and get her mind unwound, there were even well-intended memes to mock the hate campaign against her. Right. And so that took her out of her experience of letting go. And so she eventually just had to put the internet away and disconnect from it and found out, well, guess what? None of that comes raining from the sky. None of that comes careening through the phone lines. It's not crawling up the toilet line. No, it's just on the internet where you invited it because you decided to pick a fight as opposed to come into the sphere saying you had something to offer. And you can't say that you have something to offer when you're telling people to take a dev studio hostage. If you have to enforce your ideas, Kim, if you have to threaten people, if you have to make them uncomfortable in order to give you a space where they exist, that's not help, okay? That's not help. That's intrusion. That's invasion. You may not use a weapon to do it, may not use a physical weapon, but you're using a mental weapon, an emotional weapon. And I know you know, Kim. I know you're not going to be watching this, so don't worry. But I know you know, Kim, what emotional abuse is. So don't pretend that this is something you didn't invite, you didn't ask for, you didn't say was okay. You got to remember, when you go out here and you say these things about people, when you start labeling them things, that starts a base level of attitude with how to interact with you. So anybody that's on the other side of that barrier you're putting up between you and the world, anybody that's on the other side is going to start behaving the same way you're behaving toward them back at you. Genius. I know. It did blew my mind completely. Blew my mind completely. But here we go. We have another one. I mentioned Kazuma Hashimoto. Kazuma Hashimoto used to be a part of the Sweet Baby Inc. Racket, I guess you'd call it. And now they were quoted for a New York Times puff piece about the video game. So you see that Sweet Baby Inc. isn't just limited to Kim Bel-Air and their fun little busload of friends as they tour the gaming industry lighting it on fire. All right? And I also want to point out this too, that inspired by all of this, Jules Hardy of the BBC gaming outlets had this to say, and she says, the final purge should be to push out all of the ideological opponents that they have, all the alt-right thinkers, the Trump supporters, MAGA, all of that, Brexit, anybody that she didn't like, anybody that she found on the opposite side of the barrier that Kim was putting up, Kim Bel-Air, CEO of Sweet Baby Inc. that we were just talking about. When Jules decided where that barrier was or deciphered it, she immediately started saying that there should be a purge of people who don't agree with what Sweet Baby Inc. is doing. I don't know about you guys. I don't know. I read into this that there's a hostile entity and it is courting other hostile entities and it is gassing them up to go out and be even more hostile. Exactly how do you purge people you don't like from gaming? Gaming isn't a sports event, a public sports event. Gaming isn't a bar. Gaming's not a parking lot. Gaming's not a physical space that you're not going to stop some guy that's got a MAGA t-shirt on, a MAGA hat on, from buying Mario at Walmart. You're not going to be, hey man, I need to see your voter identification card. I'm sorry, you vote the wrong way. You can't have Mario Kart 9. Sorry, I'm so sorry. That's not how it's going to work, guys. You can't purge people you don't like out of something that's completely immaterial to control. There's 40, 50 years of gaming equipment now. Maybe more than that. I could be wrong. Could be even longer than that. There's at least 50 years of gaming equipment now. Exactly how are you going to keep that out of the hands of people who don't vote the way you do? Nuts. But she closes off with this incredibly sociopathic routine.
Thank you for your time.
Like, look at that. We're going to rewind it just a little bit.
Yes, what happens next? Thank you for your time.
So after painting these people as being hostile to her and being on a roller coaster of my life is over, but they never had me, that kind of attitude, right? Just whoop, 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 ping-ponging back and forth, ponging, if you will. Yeah, that's a pun. We're ponging back and forth between, oh, they had me, they didn't have me, I'm great, I'm lost, this is great, this is awful, we were never bothered, we were totally destroyed, just weaving back and forth. Finally, she ends with, thank you for your time. I'm a cute little girl. You know, you can clip that. You can clip that. You wait. That's going to get clipped. But that's what's going to happen. That's what she did. This completely sociopathic thing after explaining, I was canceled, but I survived. They didn't have me, but they totally had me. But what is this? Like, oh, I'm such a victim. Such a victim. It's disgusting. Instead of sitting there and like putting her hand over her chest and giving a thumbs up, like, we made it, we'll see you next time, thank you for your time, you know, or like doing the Bill and Ted thing, like, you know, be excellent to each other, that kind of, nope. She just closes it off with pretending to be a cute little girl that just got caught with her hand in a cookie jar, like, I'm too cute to slap, you can't slap me for defying you, telling me to stay out of the cookie jar. That's what happened. That's what you do as a kid. You play cute, so your parents won't be angry at you anymore. They won't smack you upside of the head for defying the no cookie order before dinner, you know? Again, don't go out there and cause any harm for them, all right? That's not what the point of this video is. We're here to laugh at her. We're here to see how bizarre her idea of the world is and how all these people that are clapping like seals, you know, to everything she has to say, especially when she pauses for them to do it. That was great, by the way. There was like no impromptu applause or whatsoever during this. It was only when she stopped and gave them the like open air to do any type of reaction that it came. That was great. That was really helpful. You know, it's awesome when people wait for an opportunity to applause. That's how you know it's great. They're not just motivated to do that because they're fired up, right? They're waiting like, oh, I'm so excited, but I gotta wait until she takes a breath. I gotta wait. Yeah, I know. You let me know how you feel about this down in the comments below. And again, I just want to remind everybody you will be hearing music in this video because I have to make sure that this is transformative. So when you heard that music earlier, that was intentional. That is what I added in order to make sure that we don't get hit by this video that hasn't been up for a day yet. I just wanted to bring this information as it happened, as close to as it happened to you guys. And let's find out what you guys think. Let us know down below. And as always, guys, good luck out there.